Welcome back. Today we're diving into one of the most essential tools in Python, for loops. These loops help us repeat tasks easily. For example, imagine you have a list of customer feedback and you want to analyze each one. Instead of handling them one by one manually, a for loop can help you automate the process. Let's dive in deeper into how for loops work. So a for loop is a way to tell Python, go through each item in this collection one by one and do something with it. And so instead of you having to write the same instruction multiple times, the loop takes care of the repetition for you. So let me write down the basic syntax for you. All right, so we have a multi-level comment, and here's the basic structure of a for loop. All right, so let's explain what each part means. For. This is the keyword that starts the loop. This is a special keyword for Python. Now, item. This is a temporary variable that will take the value of each item in the collection. Now, this can be named anything. As I said, it's a temporary variable, so we could name it element, we could name it x, we could name it num. This could be named anything. Next, we have n. Now, this n is a keyword that tells Python we're going to loop through a collection. This represents either a list or a string or a group of items that you want to process. And then, of course, we have our colon. And then inside of here, we have the body of the loop. This is the indented block of code under the loop. It's the set of instructions that will run once for each item in the collection. So whatever you put here is what Python will execute for every iteration. So now let's see some real examples. Okay, so I'm going to paste some code because my typing is not it. All right, let me paste the code, and if I'll be pasting the code throughout, so if you want and you should be following along, make sure to pause the video to write down the code. All right, so let's check this out. So suppose we have sales figure from the last week and you want to process them. So here we go. This is what we have. We have this sales figure that is a list of sales amounts. Right, so this for loop right here, this is going to start the loop. And so our for starts the loop, and then we have this sale. This is a variable that's going to take on each value from the list one at a time. And of course, we have n. We want to look inside of this collection, this list or string, sales figure, which we have here. And then inside the body of our loop, for each sale amount, this line prints a message showing the sale being processed. So let me go ahead and run the code. Python automatically repeats the code inside the loop for each item in the list. No need to write 4 separate print statements. So in this example, we have just seen how a simple loop can automate repetitive tasks, so like processing a list of sales figures. And it handled each item one by one, saving us from writing repetitive code. Now let's move on to another example where we not only loop, but we'll also use a condition to filter data. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. All right, so let's take another practical example. Guess what? It's going to be about working out. Not that I'm obsessed, but we must get our health in order. All right, so suppose you have a list of different types of workout sessions, but you only want to track the cardio sessions. So how can we filter and save those specific items into a new list? So I'm going to paste the code. And so let's go through this code line by line to see what's going on. We have this list that is our workout sessions, and then we have an empty list where we're going to store the cardio sessions. And we were assigning that to this variable cardio sessions. So this starts the loop. We have our for keyword, and then we have our workout variable that represents each item in the collection. So our collection is workout sessions, and then workout is a temporary variable that is going to update for each item in the collection. And then we have inside of our body of the loop, we have a check. We're going to check if workout equals cardio. And if it does, we're going to add it to our cardio sessions list. And then we're also going to print which workout was added to the cardio sessions list. After the loop, we're going to print out the final list of cardio sessions. So let's go ahead and run this. All right, and so we could see what was printed. All right, and we could see that only one item is in our cardio sessions list. And the reason why is we went through each item in here, and then inside our loop, we just did that little check. Hey, if workout equals cardio, then we're going to add it to our list. So this approach shows you how you can use conditionals within the loop to filter and save data into a new list. So not only are we looping, but we're also making decisions within the loop. And this is just going to add much more power and flexibility to how we process data. So now let's stretch this a little bit further. And this example that I'm going to show you is going to involve combining two lists and calculating totals. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. Let me just leave a little, what is this? Conditionals within loop. All right, so let's combine what we've learned and build something a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to create a simple step counter that logs the steps for each day and calculates the total of the week. All righty. So let me make this a little bit smaller so we can see everything. All right, so here we have this list, weekly steps, and this list holds the number of steps taken each day. And now we have another list called days a week, which this list holds the corresponding names of the days in the week. And here we have this variable, total steps equals 0. So this is going to initialize a counter to keep track of the total steps across the week. All right, so here we have this for loop, and this loop, you see that we named the placeholder variable day, which actually makes sense because we're going to be looking at every item in that days of a week collection. So that's kind of one thing that I should say. It's a good habit to name your placeholder variables in these for loops in a way that can help you understand what item it is that you're working on. So day, it totally makes sense. We're grabbing a day from the days of the week. Okay, next we go inside of our block of code in the loop. And just remember, this block of code is going to operate on each item in the loop, each item in this collection. And so we have this variable index, and we are going to assign this to the current day index. And what we're doing here is we're using this common technique where you use an index from one list that you need to match with another list or retrieve data from another list. So in this example here, you see that we're going to grab this index from the days of the week. And then in our next line of code, step, we're going to use that index and assign it to steps to find its corresponding step count from the weekly steps list. And then we're going to have a print statement, and this print statement is going to print out how many steps were walked on the current day. And then we have total steps plus equal steps, and this is each day's steps that are going to be added to the total steps counter to accumulate the weekly total. And then after the loop ends, we're going to just print out the final step count for the week. So let me go ahead and run this code. And so you can see how this is going over each element in the days of the week list. It's printing out not only the day of the week, it's also printing out the steps. And so this example, this shows us how you can combine two related lists using indexing to process and summarize data within a loop. So we started by matching the days of the week with the corresponding step counts. And then for each day, we use indexing to retrieve and display the steps taken. And then we added those steps to a running total. And so by the end, we calculated the total steps for the entire week. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out. Weekly steps loop. All right, so last week we talked about while loops, and so you might be wondering, well, how are while loops different from for loops? Well, let me clarify that for you right now. So while loops, they're condition based, so they keep running as long as a condition is true. And that is perfect for situations where you don't know how many times a loop should run. So for example, if you're waiting for a user to type some kind of value, like we'll say exit, then a while loop is ideal. For loops are sequence-based, and they're perfect when you already know exactly what you're looping through, like a list of items or a string. So the loop is going to automatically stop once it has processed all the items or all the characters in the string. All right, so let me just show you a comparison between while loops and for loops really quick. All right, so I'm going to paste this code. And this while loop, we don't know how many times this is going to run. Let me explain what's going on with the code. You can see that we have initialized an empty string to response. And this is going to ultimately store the user's input. And we have our while loop, and here's our condition: response does not equal exit. And as long as this condition is true, we're going to go inside of here and we are going to grab the user's input and assign it to the response. And then we are going to print what that response is. Now, once the user does enter exit, we won't go inside of the loop. We'll exit the program and then we'll continue moving on. So let me go ahead and run this. All right, and so we see that we are inside the loop because response right now is an empty string, so it does not equal exit. And so I'm going to go ahead and write hello. And while this is true, and this is true because hello does not equal exit, we are going to continue to go inside of there and ask the user for its input. So I'm going to write exit right now. And once I wrote exit, here we go. We printed the last response, and then it exited out of this while loop, and it printed it. It printed it. It printed it. It print exit program. All right. So that is the while loop. Let me show you an example of the for loop one more time, just so we can see them side by side, just to compare quickly. All right, so here we have message equals hello, and this defines a string with the value hello. And then we start our for loop here. And so it's going to go through each character, car, inside of message right here. And then it's going inside the for loop. It's going to print each character. Character equals character. That was a little choppy right there, but let me run the code because you're a pro right now. You know exactly what this is going to do. Up. Let's just type exit because I did not. Okay, let's try this again. All right. Okay, so first let me just comment this out. Okay, so I'm running the code. All right, and we can see that the loop automatically runs through the string and it stops when there's no more characters. So to summarize that long section, and I'm running out of steam right now, while loops are ideal when you're unsure how many times a loop should run, such as in this example, when you're waiting for a specific condition to be met. But on the other hand, for loops are perfect when you're working with a collection, like a list or string, and you know the number of iterations already because it's determined by the amount of elements in that list or the amount of characters in that string. On the other hand, for loops are perfect when you're working with a collection, like a list or a string, where the number of iterations are already determined. It's possible to use either loops for some tasks, but choosing the right loops does help make your code simpler and more efficient. So final thoughts. Today we covered the essential of for loops, what they are, how they work, and how they differ from while loops. We explored practical examples like processing sales figures, motivating workout sessions, and calculating weekly step totals. We also discussed when it's better to use a while loop versus a for loop. And so hopefully this just gives you a stronger sense of how to choose the right loop for different scenarios. So make sure to practice. Head on over to the Course Hub for the additional exercises and resources to deepen your understanding. You know, if you're in our Discord community, please let me know how things are going. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and post in the Help Learn Python channel. And for everyone else, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next lesson.